Well, I would say, I mean, there's two things at play there. Number one is, I mean, like it or not, there is a gun culture in our country. I mean, we have the Second Amendment. We're the only country in the world that, in our Constitution, gives people the right to have guns. Okay, I mean that's just that's just in our culture. But also, we're the only country that has the NRA, and I don't mean in any way to like try and like target them and like go after them, but the reality is, and I'm an NRA member in interest of full disclosure, so I get all their emails and I get their letters and I see the things that they send out. And when their convention was here, I actually went to the convention, which was educational, and I sat through several of their workshops that they do. And I can tell you that sitting in those workshops, the fear and paranoia was palpable. And what I mean by that is you have the lecturer standing up there and saying things like, to a largely male audience, you have to be prepared. One guy put a slide up and it said, talk about like not like your mantra that you want to read every morning. His slide said, bad things happen every day. Bad things can happen to you and your family today. You better be prepared every day to defend yourself, right? And I thought, what a messed up way to live your life, right? To really believe every day that somebody is going to get you, right? But that's what those people believe, and they believe it because they're told that over and over and over and over again. When the reality is, the number of times that people use their guns defensively is really pretty small, and the likelihood that you're going to be in your home with your family asleep and armed intruders are going to bust into your house wanting to kill all of you, I mean, that's really, really very slim, okay? But when you read their emails, when you look at their marketing materials, they would lead you to believe that every day that you leave the house, a thug, a Muslim, is coming for you. And I mean, that's kind of become a cottage industry for them, quite honestly, is sort of ginning up this fear. And I mean, you can kind of see it now, in a larger context, just kind of in our whole political system. And that's a conversation for a political science class, maybe. But I do think that is a big part of why we see this, is this fear. And honestly, incidents like what happened yesterday, and now that we know that the shooters were Muslim, a friend of mine sent me a Facebook post today from a sheriff in upstate New York, a law enforcement officer, a sheriff, from his sheriff's office Facebook, saying that he suggested that everybody in his county who had a carry permit should start carrying their gun every day to defend themselves. That law enforcement can only do so much and they'll do everything they can, but everybody that has a carry permit should carry their gun with them every single day. And so you can imagine if you are at home and you're kind of feeling a little nervous about everything that's happening, and somebody in kind of this position of authority, right, a law enforcement says, well, you better carry this gun to protect yourself. And what we see also in a lot of the marketing that the NRA does is, especially a lot of it's geared towards men, and there is sort of this idea that if you are a man and you are a husband and a father and you're not carrying a gun ready to protect your family at any moment, then you're not much of a man, Mm-hmm. And I'm not a man, so I don't know, but my feeling is that men oftentimes respond to that. It's sort of like, being called like you're not man enough, or you're not a true man. And so there's sort of this response of like, well, I am a man, and look, I got this gun to prove it. And you could do a whole lot of psychological discussion about, what a gun might symbolize. I mean, that's not necessary maybe for this conversation, but I mean, there is sort of this sense, this idea of guns being very emasculating. Is that a word? I know demasculating is a word, or emasculating, but that it makes you more manly and more of a protector, more of a provider. Like, you're ready to, I will defend my family because I'm a man. you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know what's interesting? I think it was after the Oregon shooting. I mean, they all kind of run together, and this has been a particularly rough, like 6 or 7 months. But after the Oregon shooting, I saw this thing on the Huffington Post, and it was really interesting. I'll try and find it and email it to you guys. But they interviewed college students in America and college students in Australia, and they asked the college students in America, like, when was the last mass shooting? And of course, they're all, they interview different people. It's all a montage, and they're like, I think it was yesterday, or wasn't there one last week, or I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, or it was the other day. And they interviewed the kids in Australia, right? And they're like,
What is that?
there was one when I was little, but like I really don't remember it. Like, I don't know. And they asked him several other questions, and then one of the last questions they asked was, they asked the students in Australia, they said, do you worry about school shootings, campus shootings, mass shootings? And their response, it was as though you had asked them, like, do you fear being abducted by aliens? Because their response was literally like, no.
How do Germans feel about guns on campus, and is it necessary?
No, it's not. Absolutely not. It's to lead a weapon on the campus is no. It's dangerous and unnecessary.
And is it difficult to get a gun, like to get a license for it, for an average person to get one? Or
in Germany?
Yeah, in Germany.
Yeah, it's very difficult. You need 2 licenses, and 1 license just allow you to lead a weapon and not to shoot, and the other license allow you to shoot and not to lead.
Okay.
It's a kind of it's weird, but yeah, that makes it safer for.
Do you think German people understand why Americans like guns and they shoot them often and have them, or is it just kind of absurd that
I would
like
think,
we shoot for fun, to go hunting just for fun? We do that often. Or...
No, that's weird for us.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's.
Yeah. Just a hunter should shoot for the population of animals, for example, or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
And just for fun shooting, it's not good. That brings the level of how to explain. Yeah. I want to shoot someone, but I can't do it because I'm afraid or something about this. But if you shoot for free or just for fun, the level that you are angry about it, or are you afraid about it, goes lower and lower.
Right.
What I mean?
Yeah. Right.
So my roommate was in the library when the gunman came to Florida State. When he heard the gunshots, at first he went out the fire escape. Then when he got to the fire escape, he was gonna go now through the main entrance, but someone pushed him out of the emergency exit to the side that he didn't see. And he told me that if he would have gone out of the main entrance, he would have been right next to the shooter when cops unloaded 27 rounds into him.
The school shooting here at Tech scared a lot of people and caused them to speak out against guns.
We're living in a time now where we are seeing even law enforcement in situations where I think after an incident occurs that we all can see certain situations where maybe law enforcement has not made the best decision in the heat of a moment. Law enforcement is vetted. They undergo psychological training. They go through training to become a cop. They go through ongoing training on how to de-escalate issues, how to, handle a multitude of situations. And even with that training, we see that sometimes in the heat of a moment, even a law enforcement officer might make a mistake, right? And, following that logic, I find it's frightening to think that just somebody who maybe has gone through an 8-hour carry permit class is going to have the wherewithal in the heat of a moment, of a high pressure moment, to know what to do. And what also I think is relevant to bring up is campus shootings, although they do happen with alarming regularity in our country. Statistically, in the whole world of gun violence, they're still statistically very low. Okay. So they don't happen very often on college campuses. But what does happen on college campuses a lot, and I can say this as someone who was on a college campus for 5 years, many years ago, when I was in school, what does happen on college campuses is people drink too much, people have parties, people want to come into the party, people don't want people to come into the party, there are fights. People are under a lot of pressure, especially at a school where, a school like Vanderbilt, for example, where there's a lot of academic pressure. People are highly strung, worried about that kind of thing. People break up with people. And, with all due respect, people in their 20s are still developing, right? And so the idea to me, and also, so like in Tennessee, just this semester, there have been at least 3 shootings on college campuses. There was the 2 at TSU, and then there was one at ETSU. And the one at ETSU, I don't know if you guys were familiar with this, but it took place outside of, I think it was the Sigma Chi house, I can't remember, but outside of a fraternity house, a white fraternity house. And some locals showed up and they wanted into the party, okay? And I was in college and I went to fraternity parties, and I know what that's like. People show up and the brothers are like, dude, you can't come in, it's a private party. And there was an altercation and people got into a fight. I would like to see us as a country implement expanded background checks for all gun purchases. We see broad support nationwide and even in Tennessee for measures like that. Recently in Tennessee, MTSU did a poll that showed that 83% of Tennesseans favor expanded background checks for all gun purchases, which would mean that, you can't just go and buy a gun from a stranger in a parking lot. Would that reduce all gun violence? Would that put an end to gun violence? No, it wouldn't. Would it reduce it? It would, and we have proof that shows that. The Brady campaign has data that shows that states that have implemented expanded background checks have seen, 40+ percentage point drops in suicides, women murdered by men, and murder of law enforcement in the line of duty. So we definitely would like to see expanded background checks. For me personally, another thing that I'm really interested in is legislation called gun violence restraining orders. And the way those work is they allow, and different states write them different ways, and this is sort of a newer piece of legislation, so a lot of people are really not even very informed about it. But the way it works is it applies to immediate family members and law enforcement only, okay? And what it says is that if you're my son and I have concerns about you, you're saying things that I think are disturbing, you're making some kind of idle threats, you're just, you're acting emotionally unstable, and I know you have a lot of firearms, that I, as an immediate family member, could petition a judge and say to them, my son, I have concerns that he's an imminent danger to himself or others. And there would be certain criteria that I would present, and the judge would evaluate based on that criteria. And if he agreed, then what he would do is issue a temporary firearm restraining order on you, which would mean that you would temporarily be put on a prohibited purchasers list and be unable to buy guns and ammunition, and law enforcement would be able to go to your home and temporarily remove all the firearms from your home. Now, we would also want something in the bill that would have a penalty if I falsely accused you of that, and it was shown that I just sort of trumped that up because I was mad at you or whatever, that I could be charged with some type of misdemeanor, some kind of falsifying information. And then the other thing too is that even if I file that, even if the judge agrees with me, you would still be able to go to the judge and say, hey judge, listen, my mom, she overreacts, yes, I'm very loud and I'm opinionated, but I would never hurt anyone. And the judge can make a determination to remove the protective order if he chose to.